Top 15 moments that were not scripted and brought us to tears.
If you are brand new to our channel, we invite you to take a moment to subscribe. Just click on the lit red button as well as the gray bell. Why the bell? Well, it will let you know every time we post a new video.
15.
Shane and Kurt reunited. Looking back at some of the greatest returns in the last 2 years, it truly doesn't get any better than both Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle coming back home. Both were away from the company for quite some time. Shane was gone from the company for 7 years, before making a comeback that nobody saw coming. He received a thunderous pop from the Detroit crowd during his return. Kurt's comeback was even more dramatic as he was away from the WWE for a decade. After the announcement of Angle entering the Hoff, he was later offered a position as the acting general manager of Raw. Both are seen in this rare and emotional picture catching up after spending years apart. The two players wrestled in the ring, and embraced one another with an emotional hug after a brief conversation. What a moment it was seeing the two together once again.
14.
AJ's second WWE title victory. Despite his obvious talent, few could have predicted the kind of success that AJ would enjoy as a member of the WWE. More times than not, we've seen the company make a complete mess of a star that's earned their stripes on the indie circuit. That hasn't been the case with AJ though, who's only trending upwards since joining the company. He's become the face of SmackDown Live, and arguably the most talented wrestler in the entire WWE today. The company recently showcased their confidence in AJ, crowning him as champion for the second time in his career. Styles accomplished the goal on an episode of SmackDown that took place in early November. It was the first time since 2003 that the WWE title changed hands on an episode of the Tuesday show. AJ expressed his gratitude as he showcased his emotions behind the scenes following the epic title victory.
13.
Naomi tears up backstage. Naomi came a long way to being crowned a women's champion for the first time in her career back at the Elimination Chamber event. The former champion saw both the good and the bad of the division. She made her debut on the main roster in 2012 and was told to peel back on her athleticism. According to Naomi, backstage agents didn't want her wrestling like the male talent. Instead, they urged more of a catfight style. Due to that reason, Naomi's skills were put on the back burner. Well, with the revolution in place, she was finally allowed to show her true self, which shocked many as most weren't aware of her gifted athleticism. After the WWE bought into her glow gimmick, she was given a push, and eventually crowned women's champion in early 2017. Following her victory, she embraced husband Jimmy Uso as the two engaged in an emotional hug that brought Naomi to tears. 12. The Hardy Brothers moments before their return. It still sends chills down our spines. The most watched video on WWE's YouTube channel featured the return reaction to the Hardys coming back to the WWE at WrestleMania 33. The ovation was truly incredible as fans went completely ballistic. It was a long time coming for the two who had been MIA from the WWE since 2010. Just before the madness, this emotional shot was taken of both Matt and Jeff waiting by the gorilla position. You can just imagine the emotions both were feeling at the time, hiding in the back inside of a trailer throughout the show, in order to keep everything as secretive as possible. Ultimately, the plan worked to perfection as their return was one of the most emotional and chilling in WWE history. This picture will always remind us of that tremendous WrestleMania moment.
11. Goldberg's WrestleMania redemption.
Goldberg was the first one to admit it. His past WWE run was a complete disaster. It was capped off by a horrible showing at WrestleMania 20, when he and Brock stunk up the Madison Square Garden arena. Everything about Goldberg this time around seemed so different, and that was exposed during a WWE 24 series featuring Goldberg's comeback story. In the documentary, Goldberg seemed to be enjoying his run more than ever before, actually taking in all of the moments. The real redemption story took place just before his match against Brock, when he was seen smiling and hugging Triple H, a sight we never thought we'd see. Not only that, but Brock and Goldberg would totally redeem themselves, putting on a terrific matchup. It was the perfect way for Goldberg to go out, though the question remains, have we seen the last of him?
10.
10. Roman shares an emotional moment with his daughter. Roman's rise to the top was supposed to take place at WrestleMania 31, though things would end up changing. Behind the scenes it was said that it wasn't Roman's time, so the company made a switch, and the result of the main event saw Seth Rollins cash in his MITB contract and walk out of the show as the champion. With Roman's entire family in-house, it wasn't the best moment of his career. He would get his redemption the very next year at the marquee event, taking on Triple H in what was once again a WWE title encounter. This time around, Reigns saw his hand held in victory as he ended the show with the championship around his shoulder. His daughter joined in on the celebration as the two walked off hand in hand once the camera stopped rolling. The emotions continued backstage as the two shared a warm embrace which was caught by the WWE cameras.
9.
9. Sasha and Bayley post-TakeOver, Brooklyn. A match that is still being talked about to this day. Bayley and Sasha put on one hell of a match at the TakeOver NXT event. The match was regarded as the bout of the year, along with being considered as the best WWE women's match of all time. Just watching the encounter was enough to get teary-eyed. Seth Rollins was actually spotted in the crowd shedding a tear following this tremendous matchup. The love affair continued in the ring with Charlotte and Becky both embracing the two combatants. What the cameras didn't show is the picture above featuring the entire NXT roster applauding both Sasha and Bayley for their efforts. It was a non-scripted moment that could bring any wrestling fan to tears. We can't wait for the rematch between these two on the main roster. We hope such a match would take place in front of the bright lights of WrestleMania.
8.
8. Goldust and the late Dusty Rhodes share an emotional embrace. What a legacy the great Dusty Rhodes left behind. Not only was he considered one of the best talkers in the history of pro wrestling with his captivating promo work that could suck anyone in, but he was also known in the later stages as one of the greatest mentors. Before his passing, Dusty was putting his talents to use with the young talent down in Orlando. He was considered a father figure, and to this day, several wrestlers get choked up talking about his legacy, both superstars from the past and present. The photo above is a tremendous shot taken of both father and son. One can easily get emotional looking at such a photo. Goldust continues on with the WWE nowadays, still going strong at the age of 48.
7.
7. Charlotte breaks down after NXT title win. We've seen Charlotte break down several times throughout her WWE journey, though the first emotional moment took place following her NXT title victory, the first major championship win of her career. Charlotte had a hell of a mountain to climb. She admitted herself to not be the most confident early on, though the likes of Natalya would help her out in that regard. An emotional Charlotte would win the title and share an emotional embrace with her father, who was ringside watching the match. When her brilliant career comes to an end one day, she'll no doubt relive the moments with lots of emotions. For now, she continues to enhance her legacy as potentially one of the very best to ever lace the boots in the female division. Still only 31, and on the main roster since 2015, she's got a long way to go in creating more emotional moments down the road.
6.
6. Seth and Hunter's emotional embrace. What was Roman's loss turned out to be Seth's gain. Rollins walked out of WrestleMania 31 as WWE Champion, and a huge advocate of his behind the scenes was Triple H. Following his first championship victory, the two engaged in an emotional hug at the gorilla position. Like Roman, however, Rollins' climb to the top featured lots of ups and downs. Seth grew frustrated with the company for his lengthy run down in developmental. Rollins felt as though he was head and shoulders above the rest, though the company was unwilling to push him onto the main roster as the timing just wasn't right. Thankfully, Rollins stayed patient, and he would later debut in the perfect manner alongside his Shield brothers. He's now regarded as one of the top and most over baby faces in the WWE.
5.
5. Warrior makes peace with Vince before his passing. Things between the WWE and the Ultimate Warrior ended on the worst of terms following his initial departure. Things got so bad that the company actually launched a DVD bashing his career and legacy with the company. A reconciliation between both sides seemed unlikely till Triple H finally stepped in to end the bad blood. The timing couldn't have been any better as sadly, Warrior passed away following the weekend of his Hall of Fame induction and appearances on both WrestleMania and Raw. This emotional picture, which was taken of the two before Warrior's passing, shows both parties extremely happy and all smiles just like the old days. This is an emotional picture that Vince will hold close to his heart for a very long time. He got emotional assessing the photo and reconciliation of the two during a WWE special on the return of the Warrior. 4. Brock's backstage reaction following the breaking of the streak. WrestleMania 30 is regarded as one of the better WM shows in recent history. Though despite the great matches that took place, it'll always be remembered as the night that the streak was finally conquered. The man to dent the record was none other than Brock Lesnar. We can remember that eerie silence in the arena when the ref counted to 3. What a moment, one that we'll never see again. A little known fact behind the scenes is that Lesnar wasn't the most comfortable in being the one to conquer The Undertaker. Lesnar actually turned the idea down initially, though it was Taker who forced the decision ultimately. This rare non-scripted photo shows Lesnar watching backstage at the gorilla position. Like everyone around him, Brock was noticeably shaken up by the events that had just taken place.
3.
3. John Cena and Nikki after the proposal. Rumors swirled about John Cena taking on The Undertaker at WrestleMania 33, though in an unexpected twist, it was reported that Cena apparently had other plans in competing alongside his girlfriend at the time for the very first time ever, Nikki Bella. Well, as expected, there was a lot more to the match. Following Cena and Nikki's win, John grabbed the microphone and popped the question in front of the live crowd. It was a brilliant WrestleMania moment and one that we'll remember for a very long time. The two continued the love affair backstage as they engaged in another emotional embrace. The story caught some huge heat with outlets outside of the WWE and in the entertainment world, which was only a plus for the company. And on the bright side, it appears as though Cena didn't miss out on the matchup as he's rumored to take on The Undertaker at the upcoming Mania event.
2.
2. Alexa breaks down during Talking Smack. It's not every day we see a heel break down on live television. That's exactly what took place with Alexa Bliss as she was overcome with joy being crowned the champion for the first time in her career. The moment went off script as Bliss shed tears and struggled to speak in assessing her title win. It was truly an awesome moment and one we won't forget. Bliss had another emotional moment when she was unexpectedly called up to the main roster during the draft. NXT wrestlers were not told who would get the call-up, which added to the drama of it all. Once Alexa saw her name get unveiled, she once again was overcome with emotions. She's currently still going strong as the longest tenured Raw champion in history of the Monday Night Show.
1.
1. Taker post-WrestleMania 33. His performance wasn't the best given his age and the beating his body has taken. However, his exit was truly chilling and emotional as he left his coat and gloves in the ring while exiting through the stage. He was met with a tremendous reaction backstage, one that was unscripted and merely caught through a fan's cell phone. Taker was applauded backstage as the likes of Stephanie and Hunter showed their respect as he made his way backstage along with his wife, Michelle McCool. Although many thought that was his last ride, rumors are once again surfacing that he's set for one final match at this year's show. We'll get more clarity on his opponent during the Raw Anniversary show as he's expected to show up and announced his future plans for the event. It remains to be seen in what capacity he'll be utilized.
Yeah.